Number 19, Ole Miss. Touchdown favorites on the road against Arkansas. The over-under I have is 3.4 yards per carry for Ole Miss. That is stunningly low. Yeah, sounds bad because it is. That's what Ole Miss is averaging in SEC play this year, Will. Lane Kiffin, the high-powered, set it and forget it, 200 rushing yards a game, Ole Miss rushing offense. Where is it gone?
4 good running backs at Jackson Dart.
Man, it has not been there this year. In those 4 non-conference games, they hit at least 6 yards per carry in every one of them. Ole Miss's best rushing day in SEC play was hitting 4.3 yards per carry at LSU. And that was a rushing attack that was non-existent down the stretch. So that's their best rushing game in an SEC game this year. Outside of that, 3.2 yards per carry against Kentucky, 3.4 against South Carolina, and most recently they had 2.2 yards per carry against Oklahoma. If we're writing the obituary on Ole Miss's playoff hopes, if that's what we're talking about by game's end, that'll be the cause of death. That right there, okay? It's just been tough sledding. And the non-J.J. Pegues tailbacks, the traditional tailbacks, I almost want to include them in that, but I won't. In that Oklahoma game, Will, they combined for 20 carries for 49 yards. That blew me away because I was thinking about this. I was like, when was the last time Lane Kiffin's backfield, and we're going to take the quarterback stuff out of it because a lot of times, sack yardage counts against that and stuff like that, so it can be a little bit wonky with that. But I went back and tried to find any other instance during the Kiffin era in which his running backs failed to combine for 50 rushing yards in a game. Only had 59 in the game last year against Bama, 59 coming from the tailbacks. That's what I'm saying. But under 50 rushing yards from the Ole Miss running backs actually happened last year in the Tulane game when Quinshon Judkins, if you remember, he kind of was playing through an injury at that point. Probably should have just taken a couple of weeks off. I guess they did technically need him on that day, but he just didn't have it. That was the only instance I found during the now 5 years of the Lane Kiffin era in Oxford in which his running backs failed to hit 50 yards. The Tulane game and then just now against Oklahoma. That is wild to me. And it's telling for where this program is at and what their offensive identity lacks at this point, why it feels like they just don't have that same juice. So is this a get-right game against this Arkansas defense? Not a guarantee. Not a guarantee at all. Hogs are 36th in the country in rushing yards per allowed, which is okay, that's fine, but it's more impressive when you have the context of the competition that they face with Ollie Gordon II, with Jarquez Hunter, with Le'Veon Moss, with Dylan Sampson, as well as Caden Durham getting 20-plus carries in a football game, which when he does that, he's a pretty good running back. How about it? We saw this Arkansas defense handle the Tennessee offense and their tempo extremely well. Not necessarily the same offense in terms of identity, what those programs do, their weaknesses right now. Jackson Dart, he's more experienced than Nico. Okay, that much we know. But if he doesn't have that run game to lean on, who knows? And also, who knows what to expect from this offense if they don't have a healthy version of Trey Harris? If I had to guess, I'd say that guy plays. Pre-availability reports we're talking about right now. Okay, so it's a little bit of speculation on my part. I'm admitting that. Okay, I'm not planting my flag on that, saying he's definitely playing or anything, but it seemed like there was a chance that he was going to play against Oklahoma. Initially, he wasn't even on the injury report, and then they added him to it. Very, very weird. It's almost like they forgot him or something like that. I don't know how that worked out, but he's now had 2 Saturdays full of rest since the LSU injury that he suffered that night in Death Valley. Crazy that he's still number 2 in American receiving yards, by the way. How about that? Guy is just...
Goodness, man. And I feel like I'm like, where's Trey Harris every week? Like, he would be making such an impact on this game. And it's like, hey, he's still
first
number 2 in receiving yards, even if he's not playing.
Yeah. If he's not back, I'd be terrified if I'm an Ole Miss fan. Okay? Because even if he's not at 100%, I would still prefer to have him out there because I think he just changes how teams can defend this Ole Miss team without the running back that we've come to know and expect, without having those guys in the backfield that truly scare you, without having a Quinshon Judkins, which I don't know how he would be doing behind this offensive line, which has left something to be desired, but it does kind of make you wonder, looking back on that decision, to say like, all right, Ole Miss, they're not going to match what Ohio State was paying. You look back on that, and obviously we can say hindsight's 2020, but Lane has always had confidence in his backs, and it just hasn't necessarily been there yet after a really nice start from Henry Parrish, but it's been a little bit different as of late. For Arkansas, Taylor Green looked 100%.
Yeah.
He looks, man, again, the triple move. I've watched that a lot. It was almost, it might have even been like a quadruple move. We can call it that. Like a little shimmy, shimmy. I don't know what he would call that, but that is peak Taylor Green. Okay. And if we see that guy, then it's a different story. We saw that guy against a struggling Mississippi State defense, a defense that has a long way to go to look SEC ready. With that pressure that Ole Miss can dial up in the front seven, which still continues to be the unquestioned strength of this team, I think it's a really tough matchup for him. And I think he's probably going to play his way into some of these mistakes. I'm going to somewhat reluctantly pick Ole Miss to win. A very winnable game, I think this ends up being for Arkansas, but they look back on the turnovers and they rear their ugly head again. But I'm going to say that Arkansas covers at least. So I'll go Ole Miss to win this 27-21.
You know, hearing Lane Kiffin cry about LSU's night games, I assume they were playing this game at home, but he was like mad on behalf of Arkansas that they were.
No, he's talking about a game 2 weeks from now. All right, he's talking about a game a couple weeks from now that he.
I got you. I'm just playing with you. with you. But yeah, you're right. I
hate that. Can we real quick? Like, you're going to come off as like the LSU fan in the room here, and I'm acknowledging what people are thinking when they see a comment like that. I hated that Lane said that. Go beat Kentucky and then talk to me about getting night games at home. All right?
Right.
What are we doing here? The hell are we doing?
Had some night games in Oxford.
Go be a team that's actually that's actually earned that kind of love. And I understand, like, oh, South Carolina's unranked. They're getting a night game at home against Texas A&M. All right. Yeah, that's the way that the cookie crumbles sometimes. All right. And Ole Miss, you'd like to be able to get more night games. The best way to ensure that you're getting more night games is being a good football team. Do that. Right. I didn't like it when LSU fans complained about it either. I didn't like it when they were complaining, oh, it's 3:30 Death Valley. It's too hot.
Oh, the Tennessee
drink
game,
less alcohol.
I thought that was loser energy. The Tennessee game, well, if I had a night game, how about you beat this team and I get smoked and embarrassed in your own building? Anyway, sorry.
LSU fans, drink less alcohol. I know that's a crazy thing to process.
Right,
hydrate more. You're paying $150 to be at a game at 3:30. I don't know. Like, you're an adult. You could figure this out at this point. You're making that decision. I don't want to hear that as the reason for why you can't have night games either. So I hated both sides of that argument. That just
really I knew I was not going to go back and listen to that quote because whatever he was talking about, it would only just make me more biased. So it was like whatever. But anyway, so point being, this game is at Arkansas. We've seen that Arkansas is a little bit different of a what would the word be? Biome. Environment, climate. It gets cold up there in Arkansas. It's like not exactly like Mississippi. It's not as.
I got to look up the weather now. It was cold for this game the last time Ole Miss was there too. It was very, very cold for it.
I know we're moving more westward and stuff, but Arkansas is still like it's like Arkansas and Mizzou that are kind of like these northern teams that could get really windy and stuff. So I'll put it to you.
Yeah.
Yep. Lexington. Yeah. Because it's Appalachia. Anyway, so point being, I look at Tennessee and I look at Ole Miss. And we've done this for a long time. I'm not saying they run the same offense. X's and O's guys to get out of my mentions here, but I'm not saying they run the same offense. But what we've said from the time I started this podcast, they're tricking you. These are rushing offenses. They're not these high-flying passing. This is talking 2020, 2020. These are rushing offenses. Well, Ole Miss has lost that, okay? Now, that being said, if you're going to say, I want to run, remember our boy Snoop, was it Snoop Connor?
Snoop Connor, yeah, circa 2021. Was that the last year the Snoop was? It was.
That was a gentleman who had like 20. I'm not going to go back and look at it. Just an outlandish amount of red zone touchdowns. And it was like, they want you to be scared of their quarterback so they can just walk that bad boy in. So point being, were you about to say something? Sorry about the weather.
Yeah, I was going to say it's 72 for a new game. It's a high of 72 in Fayetteville on Saturday.
Beautiful day for some football then. Good. Okay, well, hey, there you go. Anyway, so point being, weather forecasts kind of like change days out, so there's no new info with that. But anyway, so point being, I think that they were able to, if Ole Miss's rushing attack has the day that Dylan Sampson has, it would be one of their better rushing attack. It would be their best rushing day in the SEC. If you could,
it would be their most impressive rushing day. I don't know numbers wise how that would stack up. What it would take for me to definitively say, because you can get in like yards per carry and stuff like that.
Yeah, and he had a 53-yarder in there, so like you always got to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. But 22 carries, like he was getting fed. And point being, Nico just didn't have it that day, right? And Nico has not had it in a while. Didn't have it against Florida. I would rather have, like, if you look at the Tennessee side, great offensive line. Great defensive line. I think pretty good defense when their offense isn't stalling. Got a great running back, whatever. I would trade all of that for a competent quarterback like Jackson Dart right now. Okay. Now, that being said, do you agree with that?
I don't know that we can consider Jackson Dart fully competent.
I
That's
think comparatively with what's going on in the SEC.
I don't know, man. He was getting outplayed by Jackson Arnold with a much worse hand that Jackson Arnold was dealt than what Jackson Dart was dealt. The Battle of Jacksons was going to the visiting Jackson on Saturday for a while. Now, Jackson Dart deserves a lot of credit. He responded late. You're without your top target, Trey Harris. Again, you don't have the running game to speak of. I'll give him credit for being able to fight back. But, man, he fell out of those Heisman conversations kind of in a hurry for me.
Yeah, and I mean you're right, but I would rather take him in 1,000 year versus over Nico. Let's put it that way. Like right now, I don't even care the offense you're running. Jackson's more mobile than Nico. Period. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, like that's the thing. So if you have a quarterback that is just not going to move the ball down the field, and you're relying on Dylan Sampson. So that being said, I really do respect offense's defensive coordinator. I think this is going to be a scrap. But I will say I think I got Arkansas on this. So I know that sounds counterintuitive, but if you look at all those things for Tennessee, and a quarterback was able to kind of overcome that on the Tennessee side, as in they made it a negative. I think that like all Arkansas has to do is take Jackson Dart out of it, which to your point has been pretty easy. And, Oklahoma has a great defense. We talked about it. Like, again, their offense is kind of like holding them back. Arkansas is right there, I think, in terms of what they do well. In terms of, we talked about their formation and how they were able to cover Tennessee, who they have to account for the run in ways that they don't for Ole Miss. I think having those, the extra DB we talked about, being able to, like, Arkansas's defense I like against like a deep game. You know what I'm saying? Which Ole Miss, like, especially with, Trey Harris, B-Dang, that's what they try to hit. When Ole Miss, when you think about Ole Miss getting going, it's always like a post route, it's a go route. The defense is fooled. They're in. I think that Arkansas knows we can stop this team from running the football without committing this extra DB or these extra linebackers to fill every single gap, because we're going to clean it up eventually, and they're not going to stay consistent. They're not going to keep running the football despite who checks in. Put in J.J. McKees every once in a while. He's not getting 30 carries. He's not getting 10 carries. So until they find that answer, and furthermore, like Arkansas, as far as their pass rush, like we've seen it get home. The offensive line's not as great for Ole Miss. So, yeah, I'm going to take Arkansas in a low-scoring game here, similar to Tennessee. That being said, Jackson Dart, I think, can crack this open. Like, I don't envision Ole Miss winning a close one here. Either Jackson Dart is going to say no thank you and win by 10+.
It's going to be South Carolina type game. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big game for Travis Williams, too. If you have it in your back pocket, I shut down Josh Heupel's offense. I shut down Lane Kiffin's offense. It's a nice thing to say. Nice thing to say in this business and about where you're at. Because, yes, there are some studs on this Arkansas defense, and Landon Jackson and Eric Gregory is a guy that continues to – he needs to be talked about more. Xavier Story. Like, these guys – sorry, by the way, former Georgia. Yeah, he transferred from Georgia, I believe. They have some guys on that defense, and that's the good news. But if you're still able to be like, look at what I did against these highly respected offensive minds in the sport, that bodes pretty well for your future.
205 area code, hitting your line soon, Travis Williams.
205.
Calling Birmingham.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Birmingham, UAB?
No, Tuscaloosa.
Oh, Tuscaloosa. Okay. They have the same area code?
Okay. I believe so. I know I got a 205 number.
Okay. 205. Yeah, I don't know if it extends that far. Does it? Bama fans, you might know. Question. Yeah. Could be. State of Alabama. Could be the UAB head coaching job because Trent Dilfer.
There you go. Yeah, Dilfer's out.
That's where I thought you were going with that one. I know we talked about with Billy Napier, like Georgia is if you win that game, I feel like you're safe. I'll repeat what I said the other day. I think if Sam Pittman wins this game, he returns in 2025.
Oh, dude, he's already beat Tennessee. I think he already had that game. Now, if Tennessee sucks, like if Tennessee drops like 3 of their next 4, that's a different conversation. But when he beat Tennessee, and he's on television talking to Ali Rowe or whatever, like that was a moment.
It's a lot that can happen over the course of the next 6-7 weeks.
Especially with Taylor Greaves, your quarterback. If Taylor Greaves, your quarterback, you might be playing hockey out there.
You could be. You have no idea, man. They're going to get to that 6th win. They have who's their cupcake matchup that they have coming up? Is it Louisiana Tech?
Louisiana Tech.
Yeah. Okay. So they're going to get to 6 wins, I would expect. Yep. But at the same time, I think the optics of handing Ole Miss its 3rd loss, a coach that started off at his job the same year you started off at yours, Lane Kiffin. He would have a winning record against Lane, I believe. I think he would improve to 3-2, if I'm not mistaken, against Ole Miss, which is an interesting kind of like lost in the shuffle stat of Lane's time at Ole Miss. But if you could do that while clinching bowl eligibility for your team, you're clinching a multi-win improvement and doing so this early in the season when all of a sudden you're kind of looking at it, you're going like, oh, like Arkansas could be like a 7-8 win team. That would be on the table.
I tell
I
you
think
what, I
that would
want to see
be
this
great
Travis Williams
offense.
defense against Texas. I know we will, but
Yeah.
ooh,
Yeah.
you know who loves to throw deep picks?
I mean, you get Quinn Ewers a couple of picks early. Maybe that gets him going. Who knows?
Yeah,
It's
he's
just
got
way it's
the
played out.
smelling salts or punching himself in the mouth. He's got to throw the picks. Anyway,
Yeah. But should be a good one in Fayetteville on Saturday. Favorable weather, it appears. Not particularly cold, unfortunately.